I woke up to 3 bank notifications on my phone. 3. My heart sank before I even opened them. $11,940. Gone. Not the $3,980 my mother had asked for. Nearly $12,000 had vanished from my account in less than 12 hours. And as I stared at those numbers glowing on my screen at 6 in the morning, something inside me finally broke. This was the moment everything changed. This was the moment I stopped being the good daughter and became someone my family would learn to fear. If you want to hear how I took down my own parents and exposed their entire web of lies, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever had to cut off toxic family members. Your support means everything, and trust me, you will not believe where this story goes. Let me take you back to the beginning to help you understand how a successful 29-year-old auditor with a sharp eye for financial fraud somehow missed the biggest scam happening right under her nose. I had always been the responsible one. The one who got straight A's, who worked 2 jobs through college, who never asked for anything. My parents, Paula and Mitchell Garcia, had raised me with a very specific understanding of family. Family comes first. Family takes care of each other. Family never says no. These weren't just sayings in our house. They were commandments enforced with guilt so thick you could choke on it. My mother was a master at this game. Paula Garcia could make you feel like the worst person alive with just a look, just a sigh, just a perfectly timed comment about how hard she worked, how much she sacrificed, how lucky we were to have parents who loved us so much. She was beautiful, charming, and absolutely ruthless when it came to getting what she wanted. She could walk into a room and own it, make everyone feel special, make everyone want to please her. I spent my entire childhood trying to earn her approval, trying to be good enough, trying to make her proud. My father was different. Mitchell Garcia was the muscle behind my mother's manipulation. Where she used tears and guilt, he used his voice. His anger. The way he could make you feel small with just a few words. He owned a furniture store, or at least that's what he told everyone. The truth was more complicated, but I didn't know that yet. What I knew was that when Dad raised his voice, everyone listened. When Dad said jump, you asked how high. I had a brother, Evan, 2 years younger than me and even more trapped than I was. Evan never got out from under their thumb. He still lived at home at 27, his credit destroyed, before he even understood what credit meant, working at Dad's store for barely minimum wage, while our parents told him he was lucky to have a job at all. I watched him shrink over the years, watched the light go out of his eyes, and I told myself I was different. I had escaped, I had my own apartment, my own career, my own life. But I hadn't escaped at all. I had just moved the prison walls a little further out. The requests started small. Can you help with the electric bill this month, honey? Your father's store is going through a slow season. Can you cover your brother's car payment? You know he's struggling. Can you lend us a few $100 for groceries? We'll pay you back. They never paid me back, not once. But I kept giving, kept helping, kept being the good daughter, because that's what family does, right? Then the requests got bigger. We need help with the mortgage. Your Aunt Virginia is being difficult about that loan we asked for. Can you cover it? We need new furniture for the house. The old stuff is falling apart. We need. And I gave and gave and gave. I told myself I was helping. I told myself they needed me. I told myself that one day when I got married, when I had kids, they'd be there for me the same way. I told myself so many lies. The truth started creeping in around the edges about 6 months before that morning. Little things. My mother knowing my bank balance when I hadn't told her. Charges on my credit card I didn't remember making small enough that I thought maybe I had just forgotten. An email from my bank about a password change I didn't request. I reset it and thought nothing more about it. I should have known better. I'm an auditor, for God's sake. I spend my days tracking down financial irregularities, finding the patterns in the numbers, catching the people who think they're too smart to get caught. But when it's your own family, you don't see it. You don't want to see it. 3 weeks before everything exploded, my mother called me at work. She was crying. Real tears, or at least they sounded real. She told me about this dream vacation she'd been planning for years. A trip to Europe for her and Dad, something they'd been saving for forever, something that would mean the world to them. But they were $3,000 short. just $3,000. The flights were booked, the hotels were reserved, everything was ready, but they needed help with the last bit. I should have asked questions. I should have asked to see the booking confirmations, the receipts, the proof. But she was crying, and she was my mother, and the guilt was already wrapping around my throat like a familiar noose. "I'll transfer it tonight," I told her. "I'll take care of it." "Thank you, baby," she said, her voice breaking with what I thought was gratitude. "You're such a good daughter. We're so lucky to have you." That night, I sent her $3,980. It was most of my savings, the money I'd been putting aside for a down payment on a house. But family comes first, right? I could save again. They deserved this trip. They'd worked so hard. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. No thank you text, no photos from their trip, nothing. And when I finally called, my mother answered like nothing had happened. "How was Europe?" I asked. "What, oh honey, we didn't go. Your father's back was acting up. We had to cancel everything." Something cold settled in my stomach. What about the money? What money? The almost $4,000 I sent you. For the trip. Oh, that. Well, we had to use it for other things, you know how it is. Bills and such. Don't worry about it, dear. She hung up before I could respond. And I sat there staring at my phone, feeling something shift inside me. It wasn't quite understanding yet. It wasn't quite anger. It was just a cold, creeping sense that something was very, very wrong. I started paying attention after that. Really paying attention, the way my mother always seemed to know when I got paid, the way she'd mention how tight money was right before my paycheck hit, the way my father would show up at my apartment unannounced, letting himself in with a spare key I didn't remember giving him, always with some excuse about checking on me, making sure I was okay. I should have changed my locks. I should have checked my bank accounts more carefully. I should have done so many things. Instead, I went to bed on a Tuesday night, exhausted from a long day of work, and woke up Wednesday morning to those 3 notifications. My hands were shaking as I opened my banking app. Transaction 1, $4,980, authorised by my email, sent to Paula Garcia. Transaction 2, $3,960, same email authorisation, same recipient. Transaction 3, $3,000, exactly same pattern. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stared at those numbers, at my balance, at the way my entire savings had been drained in 3 separate transfers, like someone was testing to see how much they could take before I noticed. I checked my email next. Password reset requested. Password successfully changed. Recovery email updated to p.garcia@momail.com. My mother's email. My mother had reset my banking password. My mother had authorised these transfers. My mother had stolen nearly $12,000 from me. And then, because the universe has a sick sense of humour, a text message came through. "Thanks so much for sponsoring the family dream trip, sweetheart. I knew you'd be generous. We upgraded to first class with the extra. You're the best daughter anyone could ask for. Love you." I didn't set down my coffee cup gently. I didn't take a moment to process. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward, and something primal and furious rose up in my chest. Not sadness, not shock, pure crystalline rage. I called my bank before I'd even picked up the chair. My voice was ice-cold steady in a way that surprised me. "I need to report 3 fraudulent transactions. I know who did it. I need them reversed immediately, and I want to press charges." The representative tried to ask me questions, tried to walk me through the process, but I cut her off. My mother stole my bank login information and took nearly $12,000 from my account. I have proof. I'm sending screenshots now. Reverse the charges and flag her accounts for fraud. I'll hold. It took 45 minutes. 45 minutes of hold music and transfers and security questions, but by the time I hung up, those transactions were reversed, and my mother's name was flagged in their system. My account was locked, my password was changed to something she could never guess, and I'd set up 2-factor authentication that required my fingerprint. My phone started ringing before I'd even set it down. Mum, then Dad, then Mom again, then a text from Dad, then 3 more calls from Mum. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat back down and started digging. My mother wasn't good at covering her tracks. She thought she was, but she wasn't. She'd linked her old AOL email to my bank account as a recovery option months ago. I found it in my security settings, buried under layers of linked accounts and password resets. She'd been preparing this for a long time. I checked my credit cards next. Small charges ones I'd dismissed as my own forgetfulness. $150 at a restaurant I'd never been to. $300 at a boutique I'd never shopped at. $75 at a salon in a town 30 miles away from where I lived. She'd been testing me, seeing what I'd notice, seeing what I'd let slide. I was about to start documenting everything when I heard a car screech to a halt outside my building. Tires squealing, engine still running. I knew that sound. I'd grown up with that sound. That was my father's truck. I barely had time to stand before he was pounding on my door, each knock harder than the last, his voice already raised before I could even think about opening it. "Zoe, open this door right now. What the hell did you do?" I grabbed my phone and started recording. My hands were steady now, perfectly steady. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. My father's face was purple with rage veins standing out on his forehead, one fist still raised to pound again. "What did I do?" I repeated, my voice calm. "What did I do, Dad?" "You reversed the transactions. You reported your mother for fraud. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I stole $12,000 from my daughter," I said, matching his volume now. "Is that what you meant to say?" He slammed his palm against the doorframe. "Don't you talk to me like that. That money was for the family. Your mother needed it." "For what, Dad?" "The Europe trip she cancelled. The one she told me about 2 weeks ago and said you didn't go on. Or was it for the first-class tickets she just texted me about?" He faltered. Just for a second I saw something flicker in his eyes. Uncertainty. Fear, maybe. "Open this door, Zoe." "No. I'm your father. And this is my apartment. You want to come in?" "Show me a warrant, otherwise you're trespassing, and if you don't leave in the next 60 seconds, I'm calling the police." His face went from purple to red to almost white. "You wouldn't dare." I held up my phone, still recording. "Try me." We stared at each other for a long moment. I watched him calculate, watched him realise that I wasn't the same daughter who'd given him money every time he asked. Something fundamental had shifted and he could see it. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "Your mother is devastated. We gave you everything and this is how you repay us." "You stole from me," I said simply. "You committed fraud. You broke the law. And I guarantee you I'm not the only one you've done this to." His expression changed. It was only a flash, only a second, but I saw it. Guilt. Real unmistakable guilt. I thought about Aunt Virginia. Sweet, trusting Aunt Virginia who'd complained at the last family dinner about fraudulent charges on her credit card, charges she thought were identity theft. "You used Aunt Virginia's card, didn't you?" I said it like I already knew, like I had proof. And my father, in his anger and his fear and his desperation to justify himself, made the biggest mistake of his life. "That old bat has more money than she knows what to do with," he snarled. "She doesn't even notice. Unlike you, she understands family loyalty." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Thanks, Dad, that's all I needed." "What?" I held up my phone again, made sure he could see the recording timer. "You just confessed to credit card fraud. On camera. With audio." The colour drained from his face completely. "Get off my property," I said quietly. "You have 60 seconds. 59, 58. He left. He actually left. I watched through my window as he got into his truck, sat there for a moment with his hands on the steering wheel, and then drove away. My hands didn't start shaking until after he was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I worked. I pulled every bank statement from the last 2 years. I checked every credit card, every charge, every transaction. I found patterns I'd been trained to see but had been too close to recognise. My mother's spending spiked every time I got a bonus. Charges appeared on my cards right after family dinners. My savings had been slowly drained over months through transfers I'd apparently authorised but didn't remember. By sunrise, I had everything documented. Every fraudulent charge, every unauthorised transfer, every lie. And then I found the emails. My mother had forwarded something to Aunt Virginia months ago, something she'd meant to send to my father. I found it in my spam folder, buried under promotional emails and junk mail. It was a thread between my parents discussing me like I was an ATM with feelings. "She'll cave," my mother had written. She always does. She hates confrontation. Just tell her it's for family, and she'll hand over whatever we need. My father's response was worse. "The girl makes 6 figures and lives like she's broke. It's time she contributed to the family that raised her. Virginia's tapped out, but Zoe's good for at least another year." Another year, like I was a resource to be mined until I was empty. I forwarded the email to myself. To my personal account, my work account, every cloud storage I had. Then I started making calls. First call was to Aunt Virginia. It was 7 in the morning, but she answered on the second ring. "Zoe, honey, is everything all right?" "Aunt Virginia, I need to ask you something. Has Mum or Dad ever used your credit card without permission?" Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because they used mine. They stole almost $12,000 from my account last night, and I think you've been a victim too." She started crying. Not loud, dramatic crying, but quiet, defeated crying that made my heart ache. I thought I was going crazy, she whispered. There were charges I couldn't explain. Your mother said I was getting forgetful, that it was normal at my age. I believed her. How much Aunt Virginia? I don't know. Hundreds, maybe thousands. I stopped checking because it made me feel so stupid. You're not stupid, they're criminals, and we're going to stop them. The next call was to my cousin, Hannah. She was only 22, fresh out of college, working her first real job. She answered on the fourth ring voice, thick with sleep. Zoe, it's like 7:30, what's wrong? I need you to check your credit cards. Right now. Check for any charges you don't recognise. What, why? Just do it, Hannah, please. I heard rustling, heard her fumbling with her phone. Then I heard her gasp. There's an $1,100 charge to some clinic. I've never been to a clinic. I thought it was a mistake. Oh my God, Zoe, what's happening? Aunt Paula used your card. Did you ever give her your information? She said she needed it for emergency contacts when I moved. She said it was just in case something happened and she needed to help me. I trusted her. I know, we all did. Can you get to Aunt Virginia's house by 9? We need to talk. All of us. The third call was to Evan. He didn't answer. He never answered any more, too beaten down by our parents to engage with anyone. I left him a voicemail instead. Evan, it's Zoe. Mum and Dad stole $12,000 from me last night. I know about your credit. I know they destroyed it. I know you think you're alone in this, but you're not. If you're ready to stop being their victim, meet me at Aunt Virginia's at 9. If you're not ready, I understand. But I'm done. I'm fighting back and I could use my brother on my side. The fourth call was to the police. I asked for the fraud division. I was transferred 3 times before I reached Detective Miller. His voice was gravelly seasoned, the voice of someone who'd heard every excuse and seen every scam. I need to report multiple instances of identity theft and financial fraud, I said. And I have evidence that there are multiple victims. I'm listening, he said. I talked for 20 minutes. I sent him screenshots, forwarded him emails, gave him account numbers and dates and every detail I'd spent the night compiling. When I was done, there was a long pause. Miss Garcia, he said finally, this is one of the most thoroughly documented fraud reports I've ever received. Did you say you're an auditor? Yes, sir. It shows. I'm going to open an official investigation. I'll need statements from the other victims you mentioned. Can you get them to come in? I can get them to Aunt Virginia's house this morning. Can you meet us there? I'll be there at 10. The last call was to Jessica, my best friend and co-worker. She answered immediately, alarm clear in her voice. What happened? Are you okay? I told her everything. Every detail, every emotion, every moment of the last 12 hours. When I was done, she was quiet for a moment. Do you need me to come over? No, I need you to tell me I'm not crazy. I need you to tell me I'm doing the right thing. You're not crazy, she said fiercely. You're doing exactly what you should have done years ago. They're thieves, Zoe. They're your parents, but they're thieves and they don't get a pass just because you share DNA. I'm proud of you. I started crying then. Not sad crying, not scared crying. Relief crying. Someone believed me. Someone was on my side. At 8:45, I arrived at Aunt Virginia's house. It was a small, neat bungalow in an older neighbourhood, the kind of place that smelled like cookies and lavender and safety. She answered the door with red eyes and a determined set to her jaw. Come in, honey, I made coffee. Hannah was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and a stack of credit card statements spread in front of her. She looked up when I walked in, and I saw my own anger reflected in her eyes. I found more, she said. They've been using my information for 6 months, maybe longer. We sat together, the 3 of us, and compared notes. We built a timeline. We calculated damages. Aunt Virginia had lost over $8,000. Hannah had lost nearly $5,000. Combined with my $12,000, we were looking at $25,000 in confirmed fraud, and that was just in the last year. At 9:15, the front door opened. Evan stood in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered, his shoulders hunched, his eyes darting around like he expected someone to yell at him. I stood up and walked over to him. He flinched. I'm not mad at you, I said quietly. I'm mad at them. Are you ready to talk about what they did to you? He nodded, started crying, and sat down at that table and told us everything. They'd opened credit cards in his name when he was 19. They'd taken out loans using his social security number, they'd destroyed his credit before he even understood what credit was, and then they'd held it over his head, told him he was useless, told him he'd never make it on his own, told him he should be grateful they were giving him a job and a place to live. My brother had been their prisoner for 8 years. By the time Detective Miller arrived at 10, we had everything ready. 4 victims, $25,000 in confirmed losses, 8 years of financial abuse, documentation that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Miller sat down, looked at what we'd assembled, and let out a low whistle. "This is a RICO case waiting to happen," he said. "I'm going to need full statements from all of you. And I need to know, are you prepared for what comes next? Because once we move forward with this, there's no going back. Your parents will be arrested, they'll be charged, this will be public." We looked at each other. Aunt Virginia reached over and took my hand. Hannah took my other hand. Evan, sitting across from me, straightened his shoulders for the first time in years. "We're ready," I said. Detective Miller spent 3 hours taking our statements. He was thorough professional and clearly furious on our behalf. When he left, he promised us he'd have enough for arrest warrants within 48 hours. That gave us 2 days to prepare for the reckoning. Aunt Virginia made the call. "A family meeting," she said. "Important family business. Everyone needed to attend." My mother tried to refuse, said they were busy, but Aunt Virginia pulled rank. When the matriarch of the family called a meeting, you showed up. The meeting was set for Sunday afternoon, 2 days away, 2 days to prepare. I spent those days getting everything in order. I made copies of every document. I rehearsed what I'd say. I prepared for every argument, every guilt trip, every manipulation tactic they'd throw at me. Jessica helped me practice playing the role of my mother, pushing every button she knew they'd push. "You're being selfish," she'd say, channeling Paula perfectly. "After everything we've done for you, we're your parents. How can you do this to family?" And I'd practice my response. "You're thieves. You broke the law. This isn't about family. This is about crime." Evan prepared too. He printed out his credit reports, highlighted every fraudulent account, every destroyed opportunity. He was nervous, kept saying he didn't know if he could do it, but every time he wavered, we'd remind him. 8 years. They stole 8 years of your life. Sunday came. We arrived at Aunt Virginia's house early. Detective Miller was there too, in an unmarked car parked down the street. He couldn't be present for the family meeting, but he wanted to be close just in case things got out of hand. My parents showed up at exactly 2 o'clock. My mother was dressed like she was going to brunch at the country club, designer purse, perfect makeup hairstyled. My father wore slacks and a polo shirt, his country club outfit. They walked in like they owned the place. The smile dropped from my mother's face the second she saw me. She recovered quickly, but I'd seen it. The flash of fear. "Zoe, darling, I didn't know you'd be here," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "We really should talk about that misunderstanding from the other day." "We will," I said calmly. "We're going to talk about a lot of things." Other family members started arriving. My Uncle Tom and Aunt Melissa, my mother's sister. My cousin Brandon. People who'd enabled my parents for years, who'd looked the other way, who'd told me I was too sensitive when I tried to bring up concerns. When everyone was seated, Aunt Virginia stood up. She looked at my mother, at my father, and her expression was colder than I'd ever seen it. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "We're here today because some very serious issues have come to light. Issues involving theft, fraud, and betrayal of family trust." My mother laughed. It was a bright, dismissive sound. "Virginia, what on earth are you talking about?" I stood up. I had a folder in my hands, thick with documents. I set it on the coffee table in front of me. "I'm talking about the $11,940 you stole from me on Wednesday morning, Mum. I'm talking about the $8,000 you stole from Aunt Virginia. The $5,000 you stole from Hannah. The 8 years of credit fraud you committed against Evan." The room went silent. "That's ridiculous," my mother said, but her voice had gone tight. "Zoe, honey, I think you're confused." "I'm not confused. I'm an auditor. This is what I do for a living. And I have bank statements, credit card records, email evidence, and a recorded confession from Dad admitting to using Aunt Virginia's credit card without permission." I connected my phone to Aunt Virginia's Bluetooth speaker. The recording played my father's voice, filling the room. "That old bat has more money than she knows what to do with. She doesn't even notice." Aunt Virginia gasped. My Uncle Tom looked like he'd been slapped. Aunt Melissa's mouth fell open. My mother stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "You recorded him. You recorded your own father. What kind of daughter does that?" "The kind who's tired of being robbed," I said. "The kind who's done being manipulated. The kind who knows the difference between family and criminals." I started passing out copies of the documents, bank statements with their transactions highlighted, the email thread where they discussed using me as a cash source, credit reports showing what they'd done to Evan. My mother tried to grab the papers from the table, tried to tear them up, but Hannah stopped her. Aunt Virginia stood between my mother and the evidence, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother look genuinely afraid. These are lies, she said, but her voice was shaking now. Zoe has always been dramatic. She's always exaggerated things. Evan stood up. His voice was quiet, but in the silence of that room, everyone heard him. They opened 7 credit cards in my name, he said. They took out a car loan I didn't know about. They destroyed my credit score before I even knew what a credit score was. And then they told me I was worthless, that I'd never make it without them, that I should be grateful for their help. He was crying, but he didn't stop. He kept going, kept talking, kept telling the truth he'd been holding in for years. I can't get an apartment, I can't get a car loan, I can't even get approved for a cell phone plan. They did that to me, and they told me it was my fault. My mother turned to the rest of the family, her face a mask of desperate innocence. He's lying, they're both lying. They've always been ungrateful, always caused problems. Hannah stood up next. She was shaking, but her voice was clear. I'm not lying, and I'm not ungrateful. I'm a victim. We all are. She held up her credit card statement. $1,100 for a medical procedure I never had. $600 at a boutique I've never been to. $400 at a restaurant I've never heard of. All charged to my card. All with Aunt Paula's approval because I trusted her when she said she needed my information for emergencies. One by one, others started speaking up. A cousin I barely knew mentioned mysterious charges. An uncle talked about a loan my father had asked for and never repaid. The dominoes were falling and my parents were being buried under the truth. My father tried to leave. He stood up, grabbed my mother's arm, started pulling her toward the door. But Uncle Tom blocked their path. He was a big man, bigger than my father, and he crossed his arms over his chest. You're not going anywhere until we're done talking, he said. Get out of my way, my father growled. Or what you'll hit me. Go ahead. Give Zoe another crime to report. My father's hand curled into a fist, but he didn't throw it. He could see everyone watching. He could see phones out recording. He could see that he'd lost. Aunt Virginia delivered the final blow. She stood up, walked over to my parents, and looked them both in the eye. I've already given my statement to the police, she said. Detective Miller has enough evidence to arrest you both for fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse. Zoe has filed a police report. Hannah has filed a police report. Evan will be filing one tomorrow. You're done. My mother's perfect facade cracked completely. She started crying, but these weren't her usual manipulative tears. These were tears of genuine panic. You can't do this to us, she sobbed. We're your family. We gave you everything. You gave us nothing, I said, and my voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. You took everything. You stole from your own children. You destroyed Evan's life. You manipulated Aunt Virginia. You're not parents. You're predators. The family meeting ended with my parents being escorted out by Uncle Tom and 2 of my cousins. My mother was still crying, still begging, still trying to guilt us into backing down. My father was silent, his face grey, his eyes empty. I watched them leave and felt nothing. No sadness, no guilt, no love, just relief. 2 days later, Detective Miller called me. Your parents were arrested this morning, he said. Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. The DA is very interested in this case. You should expect this to go to trial. Good, I said. The next few weeks were chaos. My parents made bail, but their assets were frozen. The house they'd mortgaged to the hilt was in foreclosure. The furniture store was closed under investigation for fraud and unpaid debts. Their country club membership was revoked when the news broke. My mother tried to call me 17 times. I blocked her number. My father showed up at my work once trying to get me to drop the charges, but security escorted him out before he even made it to my floor. Jessica had alerted them the moment he walked into the building. The trial took 6 months to get to court. 6 months of depositions and lawyer meetings and evidence review. 6 months of my parents trying every manipulation tactic they could think of, using extended family as messengers, trying to paint themselves as victims, trying to convince people that I was the problem. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. My mother got 4 years in prison. My father got 6 because of his prior record I hadn't even known about. Restitution was ordered, though we all knew we'd never see most of that money. Their house was sold to pay back creditors. Everything they'd built their fake empire on was dismantled piece by piece. And you know what? I didn't feel bad about it. Not for a second. Evan moved in with Aunt Virginia while he worked on rebuilding his credit. Within a year, his score went from 410 to 640. He got his own apartment. started his own small business doing furniture repair using the skills Dad had taught him but never let him profit from. He started saving money for his daughter's college fund. Real money in an account only he could access. Hannah paid off the debts my parents had saddled her with and started a financial literacy blog for young adults. She turned her experience into something that helped thousands of people recognize financial abuse. Aunt Virginia became the matriarch our family actually deserved. She hosted weekly dinners where we all came together, a new family built on honesty instead of obligation. And me, I got promoted to senior auditor. My boss told me later that watching me handle the investigation into my own family with such professionalism and integrity had shown him exactly what kind of person I was. I started teaching financial literacy workshops at the community centre. I helped people recognise the signs of financial abuse. I told my story, the parts that weren't sealed by the court, and I watched people's faces change as they recognised themselves in it. 3 years later, I was driving to one of my workshops when I saw them. My parents, they'd been released early for good behaviour. They were working at a thrift store, both of them looking decades older than they should, worn down and defeated. My mother was folding clothes. My father was carrying boxes. They didn't see me. I sat in my car across the street and watched them for a few minutes. I waited for the guilt to come, for the sadness, for the regret. It never came. Instead, I felt free, completely, utterly free. I drove away and never looked back. I used to think that family was everything. I used to think that blood meant you owed people loyalty, no matter what they did, no matter how they treated you. I used to think that being a good daughter meant sacrificing myself on the altar of their expectations. I was wrong about all of it. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about trust. It's about people who build you up instead of tearing you down. It's about boundaries and honesty and mutual support. And when family becomes toxic, when it becomes abusive, when it becomes criminal, you have every right to walk away. You have every right to protect yourself. You have every right to demand better. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it completely, and I wouldn't change a thing. The money they stole, it was the best investment I ever made, because it bought me something far more valuable than first-class tickets or designer purses or country club memberships. It bought me freedom. It bought me peace. It brought me the knowledge that I am worth more than what I can give to people who don't deserve it. I am worth protecting. I am worth defending. I am worth choosing, even when that choice means standing alone. Especially when that choice means standing alone. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose yourself over toxic family? Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's support each other, because I promise you, you're not alone in this. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself, and you deserve to be saved.